Guys, welcome back to another episode of Bar Shifts and Bullshit. I'm your host, Jay Bird, and always with the lovely Lily Lavender. Today we're going to be talking about people who claim to be a good bartender to relate to other bartenders. I think everybody that's been bartending for a hot minute has ran into that one person that tries to relate to you or try to tell you how to make your drinks and says they bartended at that one place that one time or however long. It's been a constant struggle for a lot of people out there. We all love to hear these topics. I say that with air quotes, for sure. Nobody likes to be told what to do. We've kind of addressed that on a regular basis. But we did go through several topics about being teachable and taking the effort to learn and push yourself beyond limits. But you can always tell by the way that people discuss different drinks and what they think goes in other cocktails, and you can kind of pick up real quick who really has bartending experience and who is just kind of talking out of their ass. So, me personally, I always can kind of tell when people are just kind of using YouTube or like they look at Google or whatever. And don't get me wrong, most bartenders do if they're kind of stumped on certain cocktails. But most of the time you kind of hear with hesitation or how they talk about certain scenarios, if they've ever really bartended or if they're just kind of doing home brewing and making cocktails for their girlfriends at home. But I think you've had some scenarios where this may have taken place as well.
Oh, yes, I have. One lady in particular, she wanted to know if the bartender could make a Cosmo. So she asked for the ingredients that we put inside the drink. Now, Cosmos are very basic, extremely easy. I call it a basic white girl drink.
For sure.
And she was like, that's all you add? You don't put anything else in it? She's like, that sounds too bitter. And I was like, well, if you want it with some simple syrup, I can add some simple for you. And she got all pissed off. And she's like, nope, never mind. I don't want it. So I didn't make it. She just asked for Tito's and tonic.
Tito's and tonic.
Yeah.
So she went back to what she knew. We've always had that constant struggle with somebody that's always wanting to do this. And they have this mindset about how drinks should be made. I do put simple in my Cosmos though.
I do on preference.
Yeah, depending on how sweet or unsweet they want it, I feel like that's a necessary turning point for me. Because it's a basic white girl drink, I usually add a little bit more simple than most. And that's just kind of going on a limb. You don't have to do that. You can add your basic, but I put an extra splash in it just because I feel like women, and don't get me wrong, I may be that may be a fascist comment, but I feel like
because I hate sweet drinks.
Yeah, most people do hate sweet drinks. Most women hate sweet drinks, but with that lime juice put in there, it does add a little kick of bitter. So just to kind of dial it down, especially for people that don't know what they're drinking, I'll add that splash of simple to just kind of dial it down a little bit, and so they're used to what they're getting.
Yeah, but she really didn't have to get so pissed off and tell me I'm doing my job incorrectly when she's not a bartender. I get she makes her own drinks at home. She makes it the way she prefers it. But standard, that's not how every single bar is going to make it. And she came here, she was a tourist, she was visiting. Mm-hmm. So she had no right to get pissed off at bartenders or at the establishment because they make drinks differently from wherever she came from.
I don't understand having your own way of wanting a specific cocktail. Sorry, I'm stuttering today. It's okay to be specific, and it's okay to have a preference. But if you're going to be picky about what you drink and how it's been made, just inform your bartender and let them know ahead of time. This just kind of cuts out the middleman, and you don't have to tell me you're a bartender or that you've been bartending for X amount of years to have this done. You just know how you drink. You just know what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to relate to me and be my best friend to do so.
No, I mean, it also, that would hit another topic for when people say, oh, I bartended 25 years ago. Well, that's great. But bartending nowadays is a tad bit different.
Bartending has changed and evolved over the years, just like anything else, all the way from the Industrial Revolution to date. Cocktails have changed. The way things are made. I had an older guy come up. He said he'd been a bartender for 20 years, which I believe him because he made things the old school way. He wanted an old fashioned, and I made it my way, and he loved it. But he used to tell me about how he used to make it, and he said he bartended for 20 years. He was probably in his 60s or 70s. So when he retired, cocktails have definitely changed to a whole different level. Where I mean, some people still bartend that way, still do the old school way. Like if you're making an old fashioned, he used to use a sugar cube rather than just using demerara.
Oh yeah, I remember those too.
Which is really cool. It's a really cool mindset. It's definitely old school. You don't really beat it. But where he drank it for so long like that, like it was like that's just what his mind knows. He also had me top it with soda water, which
I have done before too, but it's all based off of preference.
Yeah, well, very preference. So you can kind of pick out who knows what they're talking about. And I've been bartending for a hot minute, and I'm still learning, and I'm starting to pick up on different things that I wouldn't have ever guessed. And some of these old timers, if you get the benefit to actually learn from somebody that knows what they're talking about, especially the older fellers, and usually the ones that are good with the cocktails back in those heydays are usually like down home, old school, they're usually men that know those cocktails.
And they usually make things from scratch too.
They make things from scratch. I had somebody ask me for a true Manhattan not too long ago. And a true Manhattan, guys, it takes sweet and dry vermouth. That's not something I ever knew. I've made Manhattans several times, probably hundreds of different times. Not one time have I ever added both vermouths until somebody requested it the other day. And that dude was in his 60s.
Well, like majority of these older cocktails that we still use nowadays, in a speakeasy, they have a tendency of making it the old traditional way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's good to learn the old traditional way. That way you're not automatically jumping into the advanced stages of different cocktails. And an old fashioned is a good example of that. There is an old way to make it, and there's a history behind it. At the same time, when you're making it, you can see the different flavors and the different enhancements that you can actually push together. You'll see some bartenders actually muddle their fruit in their old fashions. I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't like doing it, but I only do it on request.
I'll do it on request, but I'll suggest something otherwise because I like using the juice from the rind. Now the rind is the actual peel from a lime and an orange, rather than using the actual orange slice to muddle it up. I feel like it adds too much citrus, it adds too much of a sweet flavor to it, where the rind adds a different kind of kick to it. And me personally, if I'm going to suggest an alcohol that goes with a good old fashioned, it's going to be a rye whiskey.
Yeah.
Rye is very, very intense. It has real sting when you drink it straight, but it really does bring out like certain flavors that you wouldn't have found out.
Like we have a very close friend of ours, and one of the main cocktails that he enjoys the most is a really good, made correctly old fashioned. And it's without being muddled. But he'll take it that way if, he goes somewhere. But for the most part, now he's never been a bartender. And he's an old-fashioned snob. He's also a bourbon snob. So he's done a lot of research on it.
Yeah, somebody most of the time he won't even order that cocktail at certain locations. If he knows how they're going to make it, like he'll turn it down. But he never tells anybody that's been a bartender. Like he's never told anybody that he was a bartender at such a date. He'll tell them he'll look at you and decide whether or not you make a good old fashioned.
Yes,
or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is maybe quick to judge, but I would be picky. That's usually a $17 to $20 cocktail, if made correctly, and depending on what bourbon you use or what whiskey you use. Like I said, rye whiskey tends to be a little bit more on the expensive side because of how it's made, and and it's limited selections. Off the top of my head, I can name Rabbit in the Hole, Knob Creek Rye, Bullet Rye. Those are probably my three favorites to go in an old fashioned off the top of my head. You can definitely use a higher end whiskey, which is usually like Eagle Rare. Eagle Rare is a good one. Pig and Whistle's a better one. You can kind of go on on for days, and that's really cool to experiment with something like that.
It is, and but like with drinks like that, I get that people are going to be picky. They're going to ask the bartender if they can make it or how they make it, but that's not exactly forcing themselves or their views towards you on how to make something correctly. Whereas there's all these people who constantly say, oh, you're making it wrong, I don't want it. Or, I bartended 10 years ago and that's not how I make it.
Back in my day.
Yes.
Yeah. You always have that one, and it's usually, like I said, I ain't trying to be a dick, but it's usually a woman, and it's usually it's usually one of those bougie, top blonde tennis kind of chicks that tells you that they bartend in college or whatever. They did not. They did not.
No, they didn't.
For that dude that one time at that party, and they think they're a great bartender.
Popping bottle tops is completely different from pouring beer.
Yeah, so keep that in mind that if you're just going to flip it truly, you're not a bartender just yet. Yeah.
Or you've got those that say that they worked at this bar, this place, whatever, so they think that they're a qualified bartender. And so then they take on that job too. And then the moment you see them working as a bartender, you can tell that they've never bartended.
Yeah, I think we've all seen that struggle where people lie on their applications on a regular basis. Where they say I've bartended like 5 to 10 years, and they come in and they don't know how to make a Cosmo or a Cape Cod or a Cuba Libre. And that's usually my first go-tos. Like those are my quick questions, real quick, and see if they know how to make it, and then if they stall for a minute, or even a salty dog or a greyhound. Greyhound's a little bit tricky though. Those trick questions like that is usually my favorite to go to somebody that says they have a whole lot of experience. If they look at me like I'm dumb and then throw out the ingredients, I'm like, that's usually my fuck off term.
Well, our GM at the place I work, one of his questions is, how do you make it a Manhattan? And if they can't answer you within 30 seconds, oh, sorry. No, you need to brush up on your bartending skills because you don't remember.
Well, and there's only 3 ingredients that goes into a Manhattan. It's really simple cocktail, and one of the oldest cocktails
very
out there.
Yes.
Yeah, so it should be known. There's always those basic cocktails that goes through, and we'll be discussing at a later date your top 25 cocktails that every bartender should know.
Yes.
We actually kind of go through a list at another job that I used to work. Where they had 10 specific cocktails you had to know. You had to know it off the top of your head, and you had less than a minute to make every one of them. So when they were testing, they would actually make you go through a series of tests. If it took you more than 10 minutes to make all these cocktails under pressure, then usually they would tell you to take more training. But
yeah, or how about when they reach for the wrong glass when they're making a cocktail?
I know that's your pet peeve.
It is definitely my pet peeve. Know your glasses. Please know your glasses. They're there for a reason. The chemical reaction from each of the liquors, it plays a factor.
It does play a factor. The size of the glass, the way the neck's set up, it does change
how it's shaped.
Mm-hmm. And the integrity of the drink as it's being put out. I actually have this friend at the workplace I work with is huge, and I love him to death. He's amazing at what he does, and he's been bartending way longer than I have. But he's a real snob when it comes to glasses too. And under high pressure, and if I can't find the glass off the top, right there,
that's a different story.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it whatever.
We all go through volume, yeah, so if we run out of glasses.
Mm-hmm. So he'll chase down a good glass every single time.
I will too.
Yeah, he will do it. I will not.
Yesterday we ran out of flight glasses and I was pissed because we only had one busser. But I was pissed. I was like, where the hell are these flight glasses? Because I've got all these flights coming in and I can't put them out. Yeah. So I literally walked around the restaurant looking for what tables had flight glasses, if they were empty, if they still had stuff in it. So if they were empty, I was taking them.
Yeah. Well, and I was putting Manhattans in our glass coffee mugs, like because it's a long pour drink, like it's pretty hefty, and then you're supposed to add a lot of rocks to it to kind of keep it chilled, and if unless they want it straight, but yeah, like I people were getting Manhattans in coffee mugs, man. Like I was whatever wasn't nailed down, I was putting it in there.
Okay, so I gotta ask you, how do you handle a customer that says that they've bartended before and they order a specific drink from you?
And then they tell me that I made it wrong.
Yes, how do you handle that?
Um, that is a rare thing. It does happen.
Yes.
Honestly, it usually happens with margaritas. For me, my experience was that she said it was too sour. That's something I can fix.
Yes, it's easily fixed.
Yeah, it's always something I can fix. What the hurdle there is finding somebody that's so close minded that like if you don't make it right the first time or make it their way the first time, they're just done.
Yes.
In my opinion, these people are unpleasable.
Yeah, they are.
Like nothing's going to excite them. Nothing after that is going to impress them. Confidence doesn't help. So I'll tell them like, listen, I can fix it for you if you'd like, or you can let me know how you would rather have it. Mm-hmm. If they can't tell you the exact measurements of how to make that change, you can automatically call them on their bullshit. Like, I'm not saying be a jerk about it or call them or just be like, no, you've never done this before and start laughing. Don't do that. But if they can't give you specifics, then just let them know. You can breathe easy knowing that that they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So just fix the cocktail and come back out with it and be like, you know what, appreciate it. Thank you for the other opportunity, and send them on their way. But don't waste too much time trying to people please with these people because they've already got their mind made up that it was supposed to be made a certain way, and then you're kind of at a losing battle there. So,
that's the hard part.
Yeah, so just keep swinging for the fence. Keep in mind that you're going to have either 6 to 10 more guests that you're going to have to accommodate, and if you're really, really good at what you do, that one person isn't going to influence your bar.
No. So with my servers, they have a tendency of coming up to me and letting me know, hey, this person's going to be difficult because they're asking for this specific drink and they want it made a specific way. So I usually send the server back to the table and I ask them, how do they prefer it?
Yeah, that's a good way to roll.
But you have to have good servers. You can't have those servers that think that they know everything and, they're like, make it this way, and if you can't make it this way, just don't make it.
Yeah, well, usually I ask for a little bit more details because usually a cocktail is a little bit more subtle in something.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes up to me, and it happens all the time, server will come up to me and be like, "Well, the guest said this drink was nasty. Can they have something else?" Or if a guest is looking at me and they're like, "I'm not a big fan of this." My first question is it too sweet or too bitter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it too sour? And if they can let me know ahead of time, I'll be like, listen, I can make you another cocktail. Give me one more shot. If I can fix it, great. If I can't, I'll make you something completely different from scratch.
Exactly.
But if they drink all but half an ounce of the cocktail, I know I done a good job. You're just fishing for a drink.
Yes.
And those are different things that we can dial down. We have different tricks that we used to do with that. Like your go-to is that soda water.
Yes.
Soda water or ginger ale.
Or Sprite.
Something with a lemon, usually a lemon flavor soda that'll dial down and add a sweetness to stuff, especially if things are too bitter. And I've done that a couple times.
It helps.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. It almost bit me. Because I did not realize we had 1947 tequila that Don, and we have this couple that comes in, and she was like on a splash of lime in both of them, just a shot of both, a splash of lime. Mm-hmm. She killed it. He was not a fan, and he was like, man, he's like, is there anything you can do? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'll tell you what. I was like, and I jumped the gun. don't do this. But he's like, can I get something else? A shot of Don is like $50. It's not cheap. And I was like, I can make that good. I was like, I tell you what though, I was like, if I can't swing it, I'll get you a brand new shot, no lime, no nothing. Did not think about that before that came out of my tip jar, by the way. But I put ginger ale in mine, like a splash of ginger ale. I rolled it and then sent it back out to him, and he lost his mind. Loved it. He's like, it's not a shot anymore though. He's like, that's a cocktail. He's like, put some ice in that stuff and put it in a bigger cup. And I was like, all right, man.
See, sometimes it's the most subtle of things.
Yeah, but the chick he was with was definitely had bartended before, because she started laughing. She was like, what'd you do to it? And then started grinning too. And I grinned. And I was like, nothing. She was like, yeah. And then she took a sip of it. She's like, I know what you did. And then she's like, dude was cracking up, and they had a good time, and they actually tipped me like $80, like they tipped me the bill on that one. So that was a huge benefit. That could have been a swing and a miss, because like if he just really, really hated that year of tequila, that would have really just kind of tore me a new one. I could have walked out with losing money, but sometimes if you risk it and you know what they're looking for, you usually can come out on top.
Yeah. That's very true.
And that's another one of those situations in particular where confidence just sells.
Yes.
Being like acting like you know exactly what you're doing, which I felt like I knew what I was doing.
See, and that's like my friend that was texting me last night. Say he was nervous. He's nervous. They're gonna put him on the floor today by himself.
Oh, really?
Yes. So he's all or nothing. And he was like, what do I do? Things like that. So I told him, I said, just be confident. Mm-hmm. I told him that I had every faith in him. And as long as he was confident about what he was doing, even if he wasn't too sure about what goes in the drink, sell that confidence. If you sell that confidence, you can sell that drink.
Oh, yeah. I mean, confidence comes with hustle. The faster you make things, like you can make it wrong 1,012 times. Most people, within reason, don't really know.
Yes.
Like if you kind of miss the splash on one thing or another, you can, if you sell it, most people aren't going to call you out on it.
Not
even that person that says they bartended for a decade and a half, they're not going to catch it either.
No.
But I got my ass kicked yesterday. Like I was in the well, which means I was in the well, so I was making drinks only for servers. We had a big crowd working a fine dining restaurant, so we had a lot of people coming in. My other guys was taking care of the whole bar, so I didn't have to worry about them, thank God. But I had like tons and tons of drinks, and everybody decided to be creative yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wanted their own snag, their own style, their own twist to their cocktails. So I was about miserable. And you'll have those days where everybody wants to be like accommodated, which is great, as they should be in certain aspects. And it's really hard to keep that mindset when you're getting 30 or 40 drinks at a time.
It is.
Yeah, like it's really great that I have a really good team that I work with me. Like I call them the bailout program. If I'm like behind, they'll jump in and they'll make 4 to 5 cocktails to kind of set me straight and get me back on track. But I had this guest, so all the guests can see me making drinks. I am toward the back, but everybody, if they're watching close enough, they can watch what the tickets look like and how many's coming out and how many drinks are going out all at once and all this, that, and the other. Finally got a break, and this dude looked at me and started laughing. He's like, I'm finally glad you got that 2-second break. He's like, all right. He's like, you better get back to work. I was like, yeah, man. Yeah. And so, for people that really haven't bartended a whole lot, it's very, very, it's a huge flex for people to see you at work, especially if you can spit out 6 or 7 cocktails at once.
Yes.
Nothing's more impressive for a guest to be able to see a whole row of cocktails waiting for servers to show up versus servers just staring at you for long periods of time.
Oh, definitely.
But on that note, servers are going to come and they're just going to stare at you like their drink should have been made when they just press the button.
Oh, God, yes. That happens all the time. I have a couple of them at work that do that, too.
Yeah, it's never ending. People do it all the time. I've got servers that love to just press the send button and then expect it just to be there. Don't get discouraged. I'm the world's worst for getting annoyed at such things. I really am. I hate when people just stare at me. If you're going to start a conversation, that's different. That's being in the well. When people expect drinks on hand. If people at your bar are looking at you like that, 9 times out of 10 they're expecting conversation.
Yeah.
Or a quip or something to say, or or anything. So they're not being pushy. Servers usually are, though.
Yep, they are. All right, but we are going to have to wrap this up.
Before we wrap it up, we got our cocktail of the day. Today's going to be lemon drop from scratch.
So a lemon drop can be made as a cocktail or a shot. So make sure you ask. You got to be specific. But my way of making my lemon drops is 4 lemon wedges, and I muddle this with simple syrup, and it's usually about 1.5 ounces of simple syrup. So you muddle it together, then you add your vodka, whichever one, preference, ask. Make sure you ask them. You add your ice, shake it all up. Rim whichever glass, a martini glass or a shot glass, with sugar. Sometimes they'll ask you not to rim it with sugar. Shake it up and strain it into whichever glass you're using, depending if it's a cocktail or a shot. And it is so good.
All right, there you guys have it. Please stay tuned for the next episode. We will have a guest appearance, and he will not disappoint.
No, he won't.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next week.